Hey guys, what's up? First of all, happy Father's Day. Today, I figured with it being an off weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series, their one and only off weekend, we can do something fun. That is, we can have a little sponsor talk. We can talk about the current sponsors in the sport right now and what they're planning, what their plans are and all that, and what they plan to do for the future. So yeah, now of course I'll do these things only on a weekend where it's an off weekend for NASCAR. That means there's gotta be no Cup race or nothing. And of course this year, it's the only off. This is the only off weekend they get all year. So yeah. So I figured. So this is my new thing I'm gonna start doing. Anytime when there's an off weekend, we'll do something kind of fun. With it being no race, we could do something a little different. So yeah. Anyway, we'll just jump right into it. We'll jump right into our first sponsor. We'll use die-cast cars like always. First of all, we'll talk about one of the most iconic current sponsors is, of course, Mars and M&M's. Of course, you guys do know Mars is exiting NASCAR after the 2022 season, so this will be their last year. Of course, this is like one of the most colorful cars on the track with the different colors on it. Also with Snickers and Skittles. So, yeah. So Mars is leaving NASCAR for next year. Now, what would be a good replacement? I've got a good replacement. Hershey's, the company who makes Hershey's, Reese's, and Kit Kats. That would be a good replacement for Kyle Busch. So there you go. Next up, we'll talk about this one current sponsor, Axalta. Axalta is, of course, Loyal Bear's primary sponsor. And their plans are, I'm assuming, so Axalta, of course, is also one of the now most colorful cars on track. I think Axalta will stay with Byron. He did sign a contract to be with Hendrick up till 2025, so I think Axalta will stay with him as long as he's with Hendrick. So, yeah. Next up, we got DeWalt. Of course, DeWalt's with Christopher Bell, but also DeWalt's, of course, is across all the Joe Gibb racing drivers. Of course, Kyle Busch rated a DeWalt car at the Fedex Spring Race this year. So now, the thing with DeWalt is, they're Bell's primary sponsor. Now, what if DeWalt does... So, my thing with DeWalt... No, what the future is, I think as long as Bell stays with Gibbs, as long as they want to pay Gibbs so much, I think DeWalt will be in the sport long-term future. Of course, they left Matt Kenseth and they left for a while, but then in 2017, they decided to come back full-time. So, yeah, there you go. That's DeWalt. Next up, Smithfield. Of course, Smithfield's a big partner of Eric Almirola. Now, of course, Eric Almirola is retiring at the end of this season. Now, I don't know what Smithfield's plans are. I've not heard if they're coming back next year or not. I don't know if they'll stay on the 10 car for whoever drives it next year. But my thing is, Smithfield's been with Eric Almirola his whole career, so I don't know. So, if Smithfield... So, guys, who knows? This could be maybe Smithfield's final year in the sport. So, yeah. So, there's that. I don't know if the 10 car will get a new sponsor or not. Whoever takes it over. Next up, Shell Pennzoil. Of course, they're really known as Logano, but they're also a big Penske sponsor. Of course, they are a big Penske sponsor. So Shell Pennzoil goes across the Penske organization. So yeah, so Logano is with Penske, I think, again next year. So as long as Logano's with Penske, I think, as long as Shell's willing to give Penske a good deal, I don't think Pennzoil and Shell's going to leave anytime soon as long as Penske's getting that money. So yeah, so there you go. There's Shell. Next up, we got Chris Buescher and Fastenal. Fastenal has been in the sport, I think, since Carl Edwards joined sometime since Carl Edwards was with, of course, Roush Family Racing. They've been with Roush Family Racing forever. They were with Carl Edwards until he moved over to Joe Gibbs, and then they took over and went to Stenhouse as a sponsor. So they've been in the 17 car since, I think, 2014. Fastenal is a big Roush sponsor, so yeah. And I think as long as Chris Buescher keeps staying with the team, I think they'll keep signing on. So yeah, Fastenal, that's their... So Fastenal is definitely one of the most recognizable ones, too. Next up, we got Ally. Ally is, of course, Bowman's primary sponsor, and Ally signs on to be on every single race. It's not like... Of course, they wind up replacing Lowe's after they left in 2018. So Bowman, I think he will be back with Hendrick next year, and I think as long as Bowman is with Hendrick Motorsports in that 48 car, they will stay. So I don't see Ally leaving anytime soon. To be honest, now Rick Hendrick wants to keep all the 4 guys he has now until they retire. So I think as long as Bowman's in this, as long as Bowman's in this car, he will keep getting a full year sponsorship from them. So there you go. There's that with Ally. Next up, we got Menards. As I drop my die-cast. Menards is, of course, a big Penske sponsor across this year, across Blaney and Cindric. For a while, they were across Blaney and the Wood brothers. I don't think Menards is going to leave Penske anytime soon. The guy loves racing. The owner of Menards loves racing. So, yeah. I think as long as Menards is willing to pay a budget for at least maybe one race every single weekend for the Cup Series, I think Menards is going to stick around as long as Blaney's with Penske. So, yeah. So there you go. That's Menards. The nice thing about Menards cars is this is like one of the easiest cars to spot in the entire field because it's got a really bright yellow. So like look here, you can see the Menards car very easy. So yeah, Menards really one of the most recognizable sponsors. Next up, Bass Pro Shops. Bass Pro Shops, of course, is primary sponsor Mark Truex Jr. And they've really came a long way in NASCAR. They have been in the sport for a long time. They've sponsored so many drivers. And Truex is winless, but now here's the thing. Truex is talking about maybe retirement now after this season. If he was to retire, I think Bass Pro Shops would stay with somebody. I don't think they would leave. They're really a big partner in NASCAR, so yeah, but who would they go to? I don't know. So yeah, Bass Pro Shops really one of the biggest sponsors in the sport. Next up, Hendrickcars Com. Of course, this started out on William Byron's car in 2020 for a few races. Then it became Kyle Larson's primary last year. And then, of course, this year, Hendrickcars.com is on Kyle Larson's car for all but 3 races, and the other 3 are Valvoline races. So, and of course, Larson drove this car to victory lane 7 out of his 10 wins last year. And it came back on the next gen car just with everything pushed forward. So, I think as long as Kyle Larson is... So, here's my thing. I don't think Hendrick Cars is going to leave. As long as Kyle Larson is with the team... I think as long as he's with the team, trying to do what he can and win races all the time, I think Hendrick Cars is going to be around for a long time. Considering the fact that they've won the last 2 championships with probably the 2 most popular guys in the sport right now. So, yeah. Hendrickcars.com is going to probably be around for a while. So, yeah. There's that. Next up, Hooters. Of course, Hooters came back in 2017. Now, they're not a primary sponsor, but they're big because of Chase Elliott. Like, of course, they pay to sponsor him for maybe 2 or 3 races every year. Of course, in 2020, they're back with Chase Elliott this year, except they don't... Of course, it's not this paid job anymore. But Hooters is becoming a long way. With Chase Elliott, I think, here's the thing. As long as the sponsor gets on Chase Elliott, or I think even Kyle Larson, they're going to become big as long as they're on one of those 2 drivers. Of course, Chase Elliott has not won a race with Hooters yet. He's won with every sponsor but Hooters. So, yeah. So, there's that. Hooters is not a primary, but they are definitely a big sponsor to Chase Elliott and NASCAR. So, there you go. There's that. Next up. Busch Beer. Of course, Busch Beer is a big sponsor for Harvick and Stewart Haas Racing. Now, they've not been on the car this year that much, I've noticed. So, of course, Harvick has not won a race yet this year. So, I think now, of course, I don't know if Harvick's returning to the team next year. His contract doesn't expire for another season, so I think Busch Beer will come back next year and sponsor Harvick, but, so, yeah. So, of course, Busch Beer has made so many creative paint schemes. That's what makes them so recognizable. They've made so many creative paint schemes. So, yeah. Busch Beer, you've came a long way in NASCAR, so, yeah. Next up, McDonald's. Now, of course, they only sponsor Bubba Wallace this year and Kurt Busch, the 2011 guys, and nobody else. Of course, McDonald's finally got their first win and since Jimmy Spencer last year with Bubba Wallace winning Talladega. So, yeah. McDonald's has definitely came a long way, even though it took them so long to finally break the race-winning streak. And of course, McDonald's is, of course, known for so many kids. It's made kids' favorite restaurants, McDonald's. So, yeah. So, I think as long as they're paying $23.11 good budget or whoever, I think they're going to be in the sport for a good time. Not as a primary, but maybe just as like a secondary sponsor. So, yeah. So, there's that. Next up, Napa Auto Parts. Of course, they're big because of Chase Elliott. And I think as long as Chase Elliott's with Hendrick Motorsports, and I'll be honest, even if he was, I'll be fair enough, even if he was to leave Hendrick Motorsports, I don't think be fair enough, I don't think Chase Elliott is actually going to ever leave Hendrick Motorsports. Even if he did, I think Napa would follow him. They're big of him, he's the most popular driver, he gave them a championship in 2020. So I think as long as Chase Elliott's getting the most popular driver award every year, I think Napa's going to be in the sport. And they've been in the sport now for a long time. And I think they're a big motorsport sponsor. So I think as long as Chase Elliott's getting paid a good funding, he is not going to lose Napa Auto Parts anytime soon. So, yep. So there's Napa Auto Parts. Next up, Fifth Third Bank. Fifth Third Bank started, I don't know what year it started, but they were kind of like Chris Buescher's secondary sponsor. And they've come a long way, too. Now, they're not his primary. Fastenal is his primary, but, of course, you guys may remember Stenhouse gave Fifth Third Bank a couple wins in 2017 at Daytona, at the Daytona night race and the Talladega spring race. But, I'll be fair enough. I think as long as Chris Buescher is with Roush, I think Fifth Third Bank's going to stay on that 17 car. Maybe not even. So, yeah, I think as long as Fifth Third Bank's paying Roush a good money, he would keep them. So, yeah. So, there you go. There's the Fifth Third Bank sponsorship. Next up, we got Mobile One. Mobile One has been in the sport, I think, since Tony Stewart opened up his own team. Of course, they're a big primary sponsor on Harvick now. They moved over to Harvick. Of course, they were across the all SHR guys for a while. But, of course, Mobile One is a motor oil that pays Stewart Haas a good amount to be on Harvick's car, or maybe even somebody else's car every now and then. So they're really across the whole SHR organization. Of course, Mobile One's last win was the 2019 Brickyard 400, and this is the paint scheme he won in. This is not, now I'll be honest, this is not my favorite Mobile One car. I'm glad they quit using this paint job. So, yeah. So, Mobile One has really came a long way in our sport. So, yeah, so Mobile One, I think as long as Stewart's getting the good amount of money from them, they're going to be around for a while. Also, they were Stewart's primary sponsor, so I don't see them leaving anytime soon. So, Mobile One's going to be with them for a while. Next up, Ford Motorcraft, of course. They're big. They're definitely a big sponsor of the Wood Brothers. And I think as long as they're paying the Wood Brothers a good amount, they're going to stick around as long as they're willing to pay the Wood Brothers a good amount. So, yeah. So, there you go. That's Motorcraft. That's technically an iconic Wood Brothers sponsor. So, yep. Next up, Kroger. Kroger came out very small in a Matt Kenseth car, I think, in 2011 or 2012. But they are the biggest. They're really a big partner with JT Thordy Racing. And I think as long as JT Authority Racing gets... I think as long as they're paying him a good amount to be on the 47 car all year, I don't see JT Authority Racing going out of business anytime soon, as long as Kroger's willing to support them. So, yeah, there's that. There's Kroger. Next up, Haas Tooling. Of course, they've been the primary sponsor since Kurt Busch came to Stewart-Haas Racing in 2014, and they made the number 41 car. Of course, they got a win. Of course, they've gotten a few wins with Kurt Busch, and they got one with Custer. And of course, they're also on. I think sometimes they're the primary sponsor of the 41 car. And I'll be honest. As long as Tony Stewart, I don't think this is going to leave unless Stewart-Haas Racing, for whatever reason, shuts down, which I don't think they will. So as long as Stewart-Haas Racing is in existence, the Haas sponsorship is going to stay. So, yeah. So there's the Haas sponsorship. Next up, Fedex. Fedex, of course, has been with Denny Hamlin since he came to Joe Gibbs Racing as a rookie in 2006. Of course, they pay for majority of his races. So I think as long as Hamlin is with Joe Gibbs Racing, as long as he's not retiring, he's going to keep the FedEx sponsorship. So, yeah. And finally, Discount Tires. Discount Tires started in Cup in 2018 as a full-time sponsor. Of course, they were with Brad Keselowski for the last 4 years of him in the Penske car. They got 2 wins with him, and they won the Daytona 500 this year. So, Discount Tires started out in Xfinity Series when Penske had an Xfinity Series team. But now they're in Cup full-time, and I think as long as they're paying Penske a good amount, they're a big Penske sponsor, I don't see them leaving. I don't see them leaving anytime soon. So, I mean, this is only their 5th time. This is their 5th full-time season in the Cup Series. And I think as long as they're willing to pay him a good amount, I don't see Discount Tires going away anytime soon. So, there you go. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little Father's Day special NASCAR off-weekend sponsor talk. So, yeah, well, guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. Bye.